Today in Capechi's Corner, we're going to look at operations with integers. The first set of problems, we're going to talk about absolute value. Absolute value of a number is the number of units it is from 0 on a number line. So for instance, if I'm looking at the absolute value of 5, that's 5 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, away from 0 on the number line. In number 2, -5, the absolute value of -5 is also 5 because that number is also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units from 0 on the other line. So that actually is also 5. In number 3, we have the absolute value of 17, which is 17. However, we have to pay attention to that negative sign up front. So the absolute value of 17 is 17. We're going to multiply that by -1. So our final answer there is -17. And looking at our next example, we're going to add real numbers. If the signs are the same, we're going to add the absolute values of the number and keep the common sign. So for instance, in number 4, the absolute value of -1 is 1. The absolute value of -2 is 2. Because these numbers both started with the same sign, negative, I'm going to add the absolute values, which is 3, and attach the common sign, or the sign that was the same in the original problem, and keep that sign. So the answer there is -3. In number 5, if I'm adding values that have opposite signs, I'm going to take the absolute value of each first. So the absolute value of 7 is 7. The absolute value is -3 is 3. But the rule is I'm going to subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the larger absolute value. So 7 minus 3 gives me 4. The sign of the higher number, which happens to be 7, is positive, so I'm going to keep that positive value. So that answer is +4. In number 6, the absolute value of -8 is 8. The absolute value of +2 is 2. I subtract the two numbers, I get 6. But this time, the higher value is a negative, so I'm going to attach that higher sign. So I get a -6 as my final answer. Next, we're going to look at multiplying and dividing. So in number 7, I'm multiplying two numbers that have different signs, opposite signs. So I'm going to take the absolute value of each, 3 and 5, and I'm going to multiply them together, and I get 15. What I'm going to do when the signs are opposite of my original problem, I have a positive and negative, my final answer is going to have a negative. So that final answer is -15. In number 8, my original signs are the same. I have a -4 as well as a -10. I'm going to multiply the absolute values together. 4 times 10 gives me 40. Because my original signs were negative, that means my final answer is going to be a positive. So my final answer is 40. In our last problem, we are going to divide. So I have a fraction, which always makes things a little tricky, so I'm going to rewrite that horizontally. So I have 3 divided by -3/4. And the rule is when I divide a fraction, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So that 3 stays the same, that division sign becomes a multiplication sign, and my fraction, I take the reciprocal. So that means I switch the values. My denominator in the original problem is 4. It's now going to become my numerator. And my numerator is -3. That is now going to become the denominator. That's my reciprocal. So when I multiply this 3 is really over 1, if that helps you. So I multiply my numerators. I get 3 times 4 gives me +12. My denominators, I have 1 times -3 gives me -3. And I simplify that, so my final answer in that problem is -4.